Hello learners, welcome to this second session of the course on counseling psychology. The topic for today's video session is types of counseling. By now you are aware about what is counseling, its meaning. You have also learned about the different related terms like guidance, psychotherapy and counseling. You also learned about a few definitions of counseling. In the last video, you learned a few definitions where we explained what is counseling. Basically, counseling is a helping relationship. It is a therapeutic relationship. Okay. So, you must be aware about the different aspects of this counseling relationship. And all these definitions must have made the meaning of counseling very clear to you. Now, with an understanding of the meaning of counseling, let us discuss in this video about the different types of counseling. Now, you can recall that in the first video, we also talked about the goals and objectives of counseling. In addition to discussing the meaning of counseling, for example, counseling is required as we grow and develop, as we enter into the different stages of life. Like all of you must be familiar that we have different stages of development. Like we have childhood stage, then adolescent stage, then we have adulthood stage. In adulthood also we can say that there is young adulthood stage, middle adulthood stage and older adulthood stage. Now each of these developmental stage of life, they have their own specific needs. They have their own specific tasks and responsibilities to perform. They require us to perform different roles and responsibilities. We call it as different developmental tasks. And the society also expects the person in a particular stage of development that they should carry out different roles, they should carry out different functions, they should carry out different responsibilities. For instance, if we talk about a child in the childhood stage of development, we can say that the developmental task for a particular child is that the child should engage in study and the child should engage in play. So this is the expectation of the family members as well as the society, that the child should study and the child should also engage in play. Now if we take the young adulthood stage, okay, as I said, in the adulthood stage there are three stages. One is young adulthood, the middle adulthood and the older adulthood stage. Now if we talk about the young adulthood stage, then we can say that the society expects that the young adult should be able to earn a livelihood, should be engaged in a particular job, earning a livelihood and get married and so on. Now as if we talk about an adult in the middle stage of adulthood, there the adult is required to perform different functions. Okay, for example, the particular adult in the middle adulthood stage, they are required to take care of their family, the needs of their family members, provide for the family, they are taking care of the various requirements of the children in the family and so on. Okay. For instance, in the older adulthood stage, the adult is also required to perform different functions. So during the older adulthood stage, many cases we can see that they may have reached the grandparents stage. So as grandparents, they may be required to perform different functions, different responsibilities. In addition, as I was talking about the middle adulthood stage, so there also the middle adult, the adult in the middle adulthood stage, they also are required to take care of the needs of the person who are in the older adulthood stage. So that means they are required to take care of the needs of their parents who are like in the older adulthood stage. So as you see, a particular person in a particular stage of development, they have different tasks to perform. They have different roles. A particular person in the middle adulthood stage, in addition to this, they are parents themselves, so they have to take care of the needs of their children, they have to take care of the needs of their spouses, they have to take care of the needs of their own parents also. In addition, there are relatives, other family members also, and in addition the person also has certain roles, tasks and responsibilities to perform at their workplace also. So the point here that I want to emphasize is that individuals at different developmental stages, they have different needs, and also they have different tasks and functions to perform and fulfill. So counseling here helps us to play our roles effectively. It helps us to fulfill our responsibilities at an optimal level. Also, it helps us to carry out the functions that we are required to do effectively. Now, counseling also, since we are in different developmental stages and we have different tasks to perform and the roles to fulfill, so it also needs us to adjust effectively to different situations. So counseling helps us to adjust and adapt to different situations. And we are related to different individuals. We have different relationships at the workplace, in the family, and in the society. So counseling also helps us to maintain good interpersonal relationships, because relationship is the key to function effectively. So counseling can help us to build up good interpersonal relationships. It can help us to have effective communication, and at the end it also leads us to achieve at an optimal level and achieve happiness in our life. Okay. So in a nutshell, I can say that counseling can help us to maintain our mental health and well-being. Okay. In addition to this, counseling can help us to learn effectively. Okay. If we are talking about the students, the children or the adolescents at their own particular developmental stage, counseling can help them to learn effectively so that their academic achievement is better. They can perform better in the academic setup. And also counseling can help us to face different challenges in our life and deal with different stresses and strains in our life. So as a result, what happens is that counseling can help us to understand oneself, and counseling can also help us to understand others, so that we are in a better position to understand what are the issues and concerns that we are facing, what are the issues and concerns other persons might be facing. So this understanding, when we are developing, that helps us to adjust in a better way or adapt to different situations in a better way. It can help us to manage our emotions in a better way also. So with all these objectives, now we can say that broadly we can talk about three different types of counseling. One is your educational counseling, second is your vocational or career counseling, and the third one is personal and social counseling. Now let us discuss each type of counseling in detail. First of all, let us take the educational counseling. Here we will talk about what is educational counseling, what are the levels of educational counseling, and what are the issues and concerns or the challenges that are faced by different persons at each level. Now, if we take what is educational counseling, we can say that educational counseling refers to the issues and concerns that arise related to pursuing education. That is, the problems and issues that arise in the context of education. Now, when a child first starts receiving formal education till they complete their graduation or any higher education like post-graduation or further higher education, at every stage they may require counseling related to their studies. Even we can say that adult learners, okay, in many instances we can see that most of us, like who are adults, we also engage in different types of learning. We also take up different courses, either to further our career or to further our knowledge, or out of just our own interest we pursue different educational courses. Okay. So in case of adult learners, this educational counseling is also required when they pursue different education in their later life. Okay. Now, when we are talking about adult learning, IGNU is one of the best example here, or for that matter, any particular open and distance education institution who are offering open and distance learning, different courses to the adult learners or to the students. So these are the best example here. Because what happens, the many of the learners who are enrolled in distance education courses, like for example in IGNU and other distance education institutions, most of them are adult learners. As I was telling you a little while ago, these adult learners, they are pursuing their own career. They may be in job, working in different fields. They may be having their own family, the needs of the family they need to fulfill. In addition, they have other kind of responsibilities also in life. Like as an adult, they might have different types of responsibilities related to their family, related to their own self, related to their own the career or the job, workplace, and relatives, family. The society also expects that they carry out different duties or responsibilities. So, while fulfilling all these kinds of roles and responsibilities, when an adult goes for pursuing a particular educational course, the adult might be facing different kinds of stress or challenges to complete the course. So educational counseling also caters to such kind of adult learners. Okay. For example, they might face a lack of motivation to pursue. They might face stress in completing the particular course they are undergoing because of other responsibilities in their life. They might not find time. They might find it difficult to balance between their own course that they are pursuing and also the kind of responsibilities that they have to fulfill. And also in many cases it may be that they are taking up the particular course after a long gap from the formal education that they have received long time back. Now they are coming for the distance education courses to enhance their career or to fulfill their own interest. Okay. So there are numerous examples like this where the educational counseling will be required. Okay. So starting from the childhood stage, when the children are going to the school, colleges and higher education, universities, or even adult learners, at each stage of development, when the person is pursuing a particular educational course, educational counseling may be required. Thus, we can see here that educational counseling focuses on various stages of education, and it helps the person to deal with the challenges faced while pursuing their education. As a result of this, educational counseling, it will help the person to engage in an enriching educational experience. Now here, one particular thing that I want to draw your attention is that the developmental stage in which the person is needs to be taken into consideration. When we are talking about providing educational counseling, we need to look into the particular developmental stage in which the person is in. Because there are developmental characteristics, the developmental tasks, the expected roles. The society expects that the person fulfill different roles. And all these things, they interact and influence the educational experience of the individual. So that is why we need to look into the particular developmental stage the person is in. As I was explaining you, the adult learner, there are different tasks. Or in case of a particular child, there are different tasks to be fulfilled. So that is why we have to, when we are providing educational counseling, we definitely need to look into the particular developmental stage in which the person is in. Further, we can say that with technological advancement, the scenario of education also has changed a lot. We can clearly see this in the recent COVID pandemic situation, where there was so much stress associated with the teaching, learning, and also the students' engagement with their studies. Okay. Because there were, when the students were engaged in online learning, many times they were lacking in motivation also. The teachers also sometimes they found difficult to engage the students' motivation and interest while teaching through online. Okay. So there were many problems while in the online teaching learning process. As a result of which the teachers also were stressed, the students were also stressed. So educational counseling can also focus on this aspect. Similarly, we can say that there was lack of access to internet for many students. So that also hampered their motivation, or that also created stress among the students and also among the teachers how to complete the courses for the students. So thus we can see that the various aspects of educational counseling, it relates to the teaching learning process, it relates to the classroom environment, how the classroom environment can be made motivating, can be interactive so that the students' learning can be effective. Also, the educational counseling can focus on the diversity in the classroom. When we are talking about diversity in classroom, it means that in a particular classroom setup, there may be students from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic conditions, maybe having different disabilities, or maybe operating at different levels of achievement. So we need to look into all these diversities in the students and accordingly address their learning needs. So next, let us see what are the levels of educational counseling. We have elementary stage of education where it is from class 1 to class 8. We talk about they have their own set of needs, they have their own set of requirements and the developmental tasks that they are required to do. Similarly, we have secondary stage, that is class 9th and 10th, and the higher secondary stage, class 11th and 12th. So each of these stage of education, they have their own needs, they have their own requirements, they have different tasks at each of these stage. Accordingly, there are different challenges which arises in each of these stage of education. So educational counseling needs to look into the specific needs, tasks and requirements at each of these stages, and accordingly the counseling is provided. Similarly, we can talk about the higher stage of education, the undergraduate or the post-graduation, and then of course the adult learning, which I discussed earlier about how adult learning also requires counseling. So the developmental stages in which the person is in, the various socio-cultural changes and the technological advancements, all this interact and impact the educational experience of the students. Okay. So the issues may be study and learning related. For example, if we talk about how to keep one's interest or motivation in studies, it might be applicable to the students or it might be applicable to the adult learners or a person at any stage of education, like how to keep one's interest and motivation. As I was talking about the adult learners, because of their various other engagements, they might find it difficult to sustain their motivation in their course, the course that they are pursuing. So counseling can help us here how to balance between their personal responsibilities, the workplace responsibilities and the course that they are pursuing. Similarly, there can be issues related to low achieving and high achieving students, because all the students are not operating at the same level in a classroom. So there might be issues arising out of the low achieving students, those who are not performing so well and those who are performing very well. Okay. So how the teacher interacts with these students, how the other students interact with these students, related to all these factors, there might arise certain situations which may create stress among these students. So educational counseling can address these issues also. Similarly, stress and fear related to examination. Okay, so students sometimes face so much stress appearing for the examination. There is so much competitiveness in the job market, in the education scenario. So that is why sometimes students face a lot of stress while appearing for the examination. And out of the stress, there are cases also where it leads to depression and even suicide also in many cases. So educational counseling can help the students in dealing with the stress and the fear related to the examination. Okay. And of course, educational counseling also addresses the study habits, how to inculcate effective study habits so that one can learn effectively, one can perform effectively. Okay. So the pressure to perform that is there in the school setting or in the educational scenario because of the competitiveness in the job market. So this pressure to perform also creates depression among the students. So this also can be taken care of. There is a study pressure to study by the parents also, by the expectation of the society also, that each child has to perform, each child has to come out as first only. So that study pressure is there, that competitiveness is there, the pressure to perform is there. So that is why it creates, many a times it creates lot of stress and anxiety among the students, which leads to different psychological consequences like depression or even suicide also. Okay. So educational counseling can help in all these issues. So educational counseling, let us see how it is related to the problem behaviors also. For example, the student is not interested in studying, or the student is engaged in bullying or aggressive behavior or truancy. Sometimes the students are also, the children are engaged in different abusive acts also, or committing delinquent acts that we say. So in all these cases also, educational counseling can come to the help of the students, like how they can do better in their studies, how they can show effective functioning and behave in a proper way. Also, we can say that the student needs to feel loved and cared for in the school atmosphere, especially for the small children. So that is why a safe school environment is required. So educational counseling can address all these issues, and also it can address issues related to diversities, it can address issues related to the disabilities and the different challenges that arises out of these. It can be dealt with in a better way. Now let us come to the vocational or career counseling. As we see here, vocational or career counseling, it relates to the counseling that is provided regarding the choice of a career. How do you choose a particular career for yourself? Because that is a crucial question that comes in the mind of the young students who are in the at the end of their schooling. So this, how to choose a career, that requires an understanding of oneself and also an understanding of the career that they want to pursue, and then working out which career works out best for the individual given the context of the individual. So all this when they interact, we have to look at all these aspects and then provide the career counseling. Further, career counseling addresses issues of interpersonal relationship at the workplace. Okay. So career counseling is not only for choosing a particular career, but also once a person is in the workplace, is doing a particular job, the person is required to maintain effective interpersonal relationship with other persons at the job. So that is why career counseling also addresses these issues of interpersonal relationship at the workplace, and also the conflicts and lack of meaning or a sense of dissatisfaction in the career chosen. Sometimes you might have seen that the person is in the job, but the person is not satisfied with the particular work they are doing and the particular career that they are pursuing. Okay. So there is a sense of dissatisfaction. The person feels that there is no meaning in the life. Okay. So this also is a focus of the career counseling. Sometimes the career transition also, you need to change the career, that also is that also comes under the scope of career counseling. Okay. And finally we can say that the achieving in the workplace and maintaining a personal well-being, that also is the focus of career counseling. So we can say here that the focus in career counseling, it can be threefold. Before the career, like which career job to choose to take up. During the career, when you are in a particular job, how you are maintaining effectiveness in your work that you are doing, maintaining good interpersonal relationship and achieving in your job, and after the career also. After the career also, career counseling is required, because sometimes when you are retiring, when you are not in active job, that also creates a void, creates a vacuum in the person's life, and the person doesn't know how to lead life effectively later on. So career counseling is also required after the career also. Now let us see the third type of counseling, that is personal social counseling. Let us see personal social counseling. It relates to the issues concerned with oneself, that is one's own personality and development, as well as issues related to the interpersonal situations and adjustment. So thus it helps in developing an understanding about oneself as well as others around us, in the family setup or in the work setup and so on. So it requires one to develop various skills and competence, such as ability to regulate one's emotions, having an empathic understanding, how to manage stress, and using our own character strengths to achieve success and happiness in one's life. So personal social counseling addresses all these issues. Learners, as we discussed here, there are three broad types of counseling. One is educational counseling, second is vocational or career counseling, and third is personal social counseling. Now, within each of these types of counseling, there can be 4 approaches to counseling, depending on the focus of counseling, such as developmental, facilitative, crisis, and preventive. Let us discuss each of these. Developmental approach focuses on issues arising out of developmental stages. For instance, an adolescent may feel low self-esteem due to rapid hormonal changes in the body. Or an adult in the middle adulthood stage may feel stagnant doing the same routine things at the family front and also at the work front. So this is an example of personal social counseling with a developmental approach. Second is facilitative counseling approach. As the name suggests, it facilitates development, understanding or gaining a perspective and leads towards solutions and effective choices. So here, a facilitative approach, explaining to the adolescent what exactly is happening to the adolescent, that will help the adolescent develop an understanding about oneself, and the adolescent will be able to accept oneself, and as a result of which they will be able to focus on their studies and move on. Now, talking about crisis counseling, it focuses on dealing with the crisis in the individual's life. It indicates a severe disturbance or a stressful situation in the person's life that may relate to educational, that may relate to career or personal social aspects. For example, there's a deep personal loss or a terminal illness or a sudden loss of a job. So these are all examples of crisis counseling, and it requires immediate attention. Fourth one is preventive approach to counseling. It focuses on preparing the person beforehand so that it prevents the issues or problems from arising later. For instance, we have many cases of students, as I said earlier, that going into depression or even suicide due to exam related stress. So here a preventive approach will focus on developing self-understanding, getting an alternative perspective and focusing on the larger goals and purpose in life. So this is an example of educational counseling with a preventive approach. So at the end, to summarize today, in this session you learned about the 3 types of counseling, such as educational counseling, vocational or career counseling, and personal social counseling. And within each of these counseling, we can have 4 types of approaches or focus to our counseling, that is developmental, facilitative, crisis counseling, and preventive counseling. So learners, hope you are clear now on the types of counseling. I look forward to you in the next video, where we will discuss about who is an effective counselor. So till then, happy learning.